With a trembling grip on my phone, I sat in disbelief as my mother's voice echoed through the hospital room. "Don't you dare ask us to cancel our plans again," she yelled. "We've had these Elton John tickets for months." It was Christmas Eve at Las Vegas Medical Center. The excruciating pain in my abdomen felt like a knife twisting inside me, but my mother's indifference during the video call hurt even more. My name is Natasha Wilson, 33 years old, and throughout my life, I've been the afterthought in my family. My younger sister Jessica, the golden child, could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. Meanwhile, my parents couldn't even look after their own grandchildren when I had to undergo emergency surgery due to complications from my husband's death 6 months prior. Despite the doctors finding internal bleeding that needed immediate surgery, my parents were solely focused on their concert and holiday plans with Jessica. After exhausting all other possibilities, I finally reached out for their help, only for my father's response to cut deeper than any surgical tool. "You're becoming a real nuisance and burden, Natasha. We're retired now and deserve to enjoy our lives without your constant problems." For 3 years, I'd been financially supporting them since their early retirement, sending $2,500 monthly for their expenses. Even after James, my husband, passed away, I continued doing so out of love and duty. Tearfully, Valerie, a nurse checking my vitals, noticed my distress. My friend Olivia is a professional nanny specializing in childhood trauma. She offered to call Olivia, portraying kindness that starkly contrasted with my parents' selfishness. My 2-year-old twins, Ethan and Emily, were blissfully unaware of the situation. The thought of potentially leaving them alone due to a surgery gone wrong terrified me. But worse was the idea of them being seen as burdens. In pain and disappointment, a resolve formed within me. "Yes, please call her," I responded to Valerie, initiating the severing of toxic familial ties. Hanging up, memories flooded my mind, being overshadowed during childhood, graduating with honors unnoticed because Jessica landed a local commercial, my parents' complaints at my wedding, and their indifference towards my twins' birth. James, my rock, understood familial disappointment. He always said, "We'll build our own family, one that knows how to love." And we did, until 6 months ago, when a drunk driver changed everything, leaving me alone to navigate parenthood amidst grief. Despite my own hardships, I supported my parents, raising their financial support due to inflation concerns. The irony was crushing. Their I was possibly dying, and they prioritized a concert over their own grandchildren. Valerie soon informed me that Olivia was on her way. "She's amazing with kids," Valerie reassured, reminding me of Olivia's experience with trauma victims at a children's hospital. "How much will this cost?" I inquired, worry laced in my voice as medical bills were mounting due to limitations on James's insurance. "Don't worry about that now," Valerie replied. "Let's focus on getting you ready for surgery." But I was concerned. The $2,500 slated for my parents could instead fund crucial childcare. The thought ignited a long-dormant self-preservation instinct. Olivia's arrival reinforced what Valerie had promised. Her connection with Ethan and Emily was instant and genuine. As hospital staff prepared me for surgery, I made a pivotal decision. "Could you bring me my phone one more time?" I requested from Valerie. With shaky fingers, I sent 2 messages. The first canceled all future transfers to my parents. The second informed them, "I will no longer be providing financial support. My children and I deserve better than being your afterthoughts. Do not contact me again." As they wheeled me toward the operating room, a sense of liberation lightened my heart. Enduring pain and fear, something unexpected emerged: freedom. The operation had been successful, though it had left me more debilitated than expected. Over the course of 5 days in the hospital, I found myself drifting in and out of consciousness, immensely thankful for Olivia, who went above and beyond by staying with the twins in my hospital room during the day and taking them back to my apartment at night. During one of my more lucid intervals, I noticed my phone blinking with notifications, 27 missed calls, and numerous messages from my parents and Jessica. Most of the messages followed a predictable pattern of confusion, then anger, followed by desperate pleas about their mortgage payment. Not once did they inquire about the outcome of my surgery or the well-being of the twins. A final message from my father was particularly revealing. You can't just cut us off like this. We've planned a cruise next month, and the tickets are non-refundable. In contrast, the messages from my sister seemed genuinely bewildered. Mom and Dad just told me you were having some minor procedure. What's going on? Why are they freaking out about money? It dawned on me that my parents had misled Jessica about the severity of my situation to justify their choice of a concert over caring for their grandchildren. Despite the grogginess from medication, I decided it was time to tell her the truth and sent her the full story. Her response came quickly. "Oh my God, Natasha, I had no idea it was emergency surgery. They told me you were just being dramatic about a routine checkup. I would have watched the twins if I'd known. I'm so sorry." I believed her, as Jessica wasn't cruel. She had simply been raised in an environment where she had learned to put her needs first. Perhaps this revelation would enable her to see our parents for who they truly were. Upon being discharged, I made several decisions. Firstly, I hired Olivia part-time to assist with the twins during my recovery. Secondly, I contacted a lawyer to draft a will designating a trusted friend as the guardian for the twins should anything happen to me, certainly not my parents. Thirdly, I blocked my parents' numbers, allowing only limited contact with Jessica as I evaluated her sincerity. The financial repercussions of my decision were considerable. The $2,500 monthly payment I had been making to my parents was nearly a third of my income as a graphic designer. Without that burden, I could finally afford adequate childcare and perhaps begin rebuilding the emergency fund depleted after James's passing. That night, as I lay in my own bed with the twins sleeping across the hall, I felt a complex array of emotions. There was guilt, the ingrained feeling that prioritizing myself and my children was somehow wrong. There was fear of managing recovery while caring for two toddlers. Yet there was also an unfamiliar sense of self-respect taking root. My phone pinged with a text from Jessica. "I just had a huge fight with Mom and Dad about how they treated you. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. Can we talk tomorrow?" Perhaps I wasn't entirely alone after all. 2 weeks after my surgery, I was gradually regaining strength. The incision site still throbbed painfully if I moved too quickly, but my ability to manage was improving each day. Olivia's help had been invaluable, arriving each morning to assist with the twins while I worked from home. My graphic design clients had been surprisingly understanding about my limited availability, and I was thankful for the remote work that allowed me to stay near my children. Jessica had visited twice, bringing nutritious meals and spending time with the twins. Our conversations were initially cautious, but gradually she opened up about her own experiences with our parents. "They always made it seem like you were the one choosing to distance yourself from the family," she admitted one evening while we watched the twins play. "I never realized they were pushing you away." I was beginning to perceive a new side to my sister, one obscured by years of our parents' manipulation. While I wasn't yet ready to place full trust in her, I appreciated her efforts. Then came the knock I had half expected. Through the peephole, I saw my parents standing in the hallway. My mother clutched her designer purse nervously, while my father stood with arms crossed, a familiar impatience etched on his features. I hesitated, my heart pounding, before opening the door just enough to speak through the gap. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice steadier than anticipated. "Natasha, darling, we've been so worried," my mother began, her sugary tone immediately raising my defenses. "You haven't been answering our calls, and we needed to make sure you and the twins were all right." "We're fine," I replied flatly. "Now, if that's all." "It's not all," my father interrupted, pressing slightly against the door. "We need to discuss this ridiculous financial situation. The bank called about our mortgage payment, and we had to dip into our cruise savings to cover it." The audacity was breathtaking. No questions about my recovery, no concern whatsoever, and I told my mother I was severing financial ties when she demanded money for their grandchildren once more. My mother pleaded, "But sweetie, we've relied on that money. Your father and I adjusted our lifestyle based on your commitment to help us." The word commitment echoed disbelievingly in my mind. I've been sending money out of guilt and obligation, yet they couldn't watch their grandchildren during my emergency surgery. My father's expression darkened. That's not fair, Natasha, he said. We had plans. Plans more important than my children's safety, more important than my life? I replied, anger rising. The doctor said there was a chance I might not survive. Did you even care? Their silence was telling. We made one mistake, my mother whispered. Are you really going to punish us? I felt a strange calm. This isn't punishment, Mom. It's a consequence. I've spent my life chasing your support. In my time of greatest need, you chose Elton John tickets over me. My father interrupted. We're your parents. And I'm a parent, too, I countered. I would never treat Ethan and Emily like this. Just then, Emily walked in, clutching her giraffe. Changing tactics, my mother bent down. There's my precious grandbaby. Grandma brought presents. Emily, unfamiliar with them, stepped back, uncertainty in her eyes. I quietly said, I think you should leave. I'll reach out if, and when I'm ready. My father began, but the money, and I finished, is no longer your concern, closing the door gently. The following morning, my parents returned with my Aunt Patty in tow, known as the family peacemaker. Natasha, be reasonable, Aunt Patty urged outside my door. Your parents are struggling. They handled their finances for decades without my help. I responded. They opted for early retirement, knowing their savings were insufficient. My mother interjected. We made those choices because you promised to help us. We've had to cancel our cruise. We might lose the house. Their manipulation was now clear, free from the fog of guilt. When had I guaranteed lifetime support? I had offered temporary aid post-retirement, but it had become a permanent expectation. I'm recovering from surgery and caring for toddlers, I stated firmly, walking away from the door, ignoring their persistent knocking. Later, my father emailed the entire extended family, portraying me as an ungrateful daughter who abandoned them after all they'd done, conveniently omitting their refusal to help with the twins. Unexpected backlash ensued. My cousin Michael, living nearby, replied, Uncle Robert, didn't you buy a new boat last month? And Aunt Diana, wasn't there a new tennis bracelet at Thanksgiving? Family members messaged me, wanting the full story. Aunt Patty called, apologizing. I had no idea about your surgery, she admitted. They said it was routine, and you were using it to punish them. Jessica supported me, having seen our parents' behavior firsthand. We crafted a simple response for the family email thread. I underwent emergency surgery with significant risks. My parents refused to watch my children, choosing concert tickets. I'm now focusing on recovery and my twins without stress. The support was heartening. Michael's wife brought meals, a distant cousin offered babysitting, and Jessica spent weekends with me, bonding with her niece and nephew. Unexpectedly, Valerie, whom I met in the hospital, connected me to a support group for young widowed parents. The first meeting was via Zoom, allowing me to join from home, feeling genuinely understood since James's passing. Meanwhile, my parents' financial situation unraveled. They had been living beyond their means, relying on my support for their lifestyle. Jessica discovered they had taken a second mortgage to buy a boat, assuming I'd indefinitely subsidize their mortgage. The facade they'd built was crumbling as the repercussions of their financial decisions came to light. Jessica was in disbelief when she told everyone that the couple had been misleading them all along. After assisting them with reviewing their finances upon their request, it became clear they weren't in dire straits, just overspent. They would be all right if they sold the boat and their vacation timeshare. Despite their increasingly urgent voicemails and texts, each day the control they had over me waned. I was reconstructing my life from the ruins of their betrayal, establishing a legitimate support network grounded in mutual care rather than obligation. A month following my surgery, an unexpected event unfolded. My parents were served with a foreclosure notice. Jessica called me, her voice a mixture of concern and frustration. She explained that they were in sheer panic, the bank giving them 60 days to catch up on payments or face losing their home. What about their retirement funds? I asked while holding Emily on my knee as Ethan napped. Mostly gone, she answered. A good chunk went on the boat, and the rest was invested in a scheme suggested by Dad's golf buddy, leading to almost total loss. "I'm not suggesting you help, Natasha," she sighed, "but thought you should know." Later, I received desperate texts from both parents, who had now dropped any pretense of caring for my well-being, openly pleading for money. My mother's message was particularly telling. She remarked, "We never believed you'd actually sever ties. We guessed you were upset and would resume support in a week or two." Their assumption that my boundaries meant nothing angered me. After years of prioritizing their needs over mine, enduring their mistreatment, they never respected me. Meanwhile, my life was advancing in unexpected directions. The support network had become crucial, connecting me with other parents facing similar struggles. Through it, I met Diana, a real estate agent, whose husband passed away from cancer 2 years prior, leaving her with a 3-year-old. She guided me towards options I hadn't considered, such as selling my cramped apartment and utilizing the equity to relocate to a more affordable area with better childcare options. Furthermore, I launched a small venture designing memorial websites, inspired by the one created for James. Several support group members commissioned sites, and word began to spread. For the first time since becoming a widow, I felt a renewed purpose beyond mere survival. The contrast between my personal growth and my parents' downfall became even starker when they appeared unannounced at my apartment, this time armed with a detailed debt spreadsheet. "We need $144,000 to settle the mortgage and evade foreclosure," my father stated, his once authoritative tone now tinged with desperation. I invited them in, not out of duty, but curiosity about their perspective now they were in the thick of facing consequences. "What about selling the boat?" I asked, gesturing them to sit at my small dining table. "We'd incur a loss," my father retorted. "And the timeshare?" "We've tried, but the market is terrible," my mother quickly added. "Besides, those are our retirement luxuries." I almost laughed at the absurdity. "Luxuries you can't afford." "We could with your help," my father countered, reverting to a hardened tone. "It's the least you could do after all we've done for you." "And what precisely have you done for me?" I questioned quietly, letting the query linger challengingly in the air. At that moment, the twins toddled into the room, Ethan clutching his favorite truck, Emily babbling cheerfully. My parents' expressions softened instantly. "There are our precious babies," my mother chirped, reaching for Emily, who promptly retreated behind my legs. "They don't know you," I stated simply. "You've seen them, what, 3 times in their lives? You chose not to be involved." "That's unfair," my father protested. "We're busy people." "Too busy for your only grandchildren? Too busy to assist your daughter during emergency surgery, but not too busy to ask for money?" I observed. "I think that says everything about your priorities." My mother's face crumpled. Genuine emotion or manipulative calculation, I could no longer discern. "Without your support, we'll lose everything," she whispered plaintively. "I lost my husband," I replied steadily. "My children lost their father. We survived. You'll survive too." 3 months post-surgery, my parents faced the unavoidable. To dodge foreclosure, they sold their house. Jessica kept me updated on their situation, though I maintained my distance. They managed to find a modest condo, significantly downsizing from their expansive 4,000-square-foot lakefront estate. My father begrudgingly sold his boat at a loss, and they finally offloaded the timeshare at a fraction of the purchase price. "They're actually blaming you for their financial issues publicly," Jessica relayed during one of her weekly visits. "It's peculiar to witness. They claim you abandoned them after pledging lifelong support." "Let them talk," I replied, surprisingly unfazed. The truth was self-evidential. Indeed, it was. My extended family largely stood by me upon discovering the full story. Even my father's sister, who typically sided with him after hearing about the refusal to help during my surgery, support was expressed through family disputes. Meanwhile, my circumstances had improved significantly. Diana from my support group was instrumental in helping me locate and buy a cozy 3-bedroom house in a neighborhood perfect for families. Surprisingly, the mortgage was less than my apartment rent, giving Ethan and Emily their first ever backyard to play in. My small business of designing memorial websites had grown to an extent that allowed me to pare down my graphic design clientele and concentrate on work that was meaningful. Olivia supported childcare 3 days a week, but I altered my schedule to maximize quality time with the twins. The most crucial change was finding a community. Neighbors offered casseroles when we moved in, and the support group arranged playdates. Instead of a rival for parental affection, Jessica became like a real sister. Valerie from the hospital occasionally visited with her children. Although I had lost my husband and severed ties with my parents, I felt less alone than ever before. 6 months post-surgery, an unexpected handwritten letter arrived from my mother. Tempted to discard it unread, curiosity prevailed. Inside was an authentic apology I'd never before encountered. "I've had time to ponder my actions," she wrote. "Observing you establish a life without our assistance has compelled me to face painful truths about my role as a mother. I envied your independence and grit, and resented your lack of need for me in the way I needed my mother. But now I recognize you did need me, just not in the way I wished to be needed. When you asked us to take care of the twins during your surgery, you were reaching out, and we let you down. I am sincerely sorry." Her letter elaborated on their complete financial restructuring. My father had taken a part-time job at a hardware store. They sold their luxury items and began living modestly for the first time in years. She didn't request money or even forgiveness, only acknowledgement of her apology. Showing the letter to Jessica, she was doubtful. "They've been planning to contact you for weeks." Initially, Dad opposed it, but his perspective might be changing, particularly after his heart scare, she explained. Concerned, I inquired, "Heart scare?" "Just elevated blood pressure and chest pains," but it alarmed him. "He's now on medication and adhering to the doctor's directions," Jessica clarified. "Facing mortality has humbled him a bit," she continued. Not ready to reply immediately, I needed time to digest my emotions. Was this heartfelt regret or a manipulation tactic? Had they truly changed or merely adjusted strategies? That night, glancing at old family photographs for the first time since disconnection, I noticed patterns I was once oblivious to. My parents were playing the roles of ideal parents while serving their interests first. A year after my surgery, I finally agreed to meet my parents in a neutral setting, a quiet cafe near my new residence. When they arrived, I scarcely recognized them. My father seemed diminished, his once confident presence turned humble, while my mother swapped her designer outfits for straightforward, practical clothing. With the twins at Jessica's, I avoided an immediate family reunion. Silence lingered until my father uncharacteristically wept. "I've been an awful father," he confessed, "and a worse grandfather. I don't expect forgiveness, but I now see our selfishness." My mother gestured across the table, not fully touching my hand, but gesturing toward it. "We've been attending family therapy for months," she revealed. "Jessica suggested it, and though we initially resisted, it's been transformative." While I didn't rush to forgive or promise anything indefinite, I shared photos of the twins and recounted our new life. They listened without interruption, an unprecedented occurrence. As we prepared to leave, my father asked quietly, "May we someday meet our grandchildren?" Pondering this, I responded, "That depends on your actions, not words. If genuinely committed to change, we can arrange short, supervised visits. Understand that my children will engage only with those who respect their mother." Departing that meeting, I felt neither the weight of obligation nor the burning resentment that characterized my past relation with them. Instead, I embraced something new, the calm certainty of a woman aware of her value, who established boundaries she would uphold unapologetically. Whether my parents had genuinely transformed remained uncertain, but I had already undergone a metamorphosis, from a daughter craving validation to a mother fiercely protecting her children and resolute in her expectations.